The steady beep of hospital monitors had been my constant companion for 3 months. After the car accident that left me in a coma, I could hear everything: my husband David's gentle words, the nurse's kind encouragement, and most painfully, my mother-in-law Eleanor's cruel comments. "She's basically brain dead," Eleanor would say when she thought I couldn't hear. "David, darling, you need to move on. That pretty nurse Jessica has been asking about you." I wanted to scream, to move, to show them I was still here. But my body remained motionless, trapped while my mind was fully aware. The doctors called it locked-in syndrome, a rare condition where patients are conscious but completely paralyzed. Before the accident, Eleanor had always hidden her disdain behind a polite smile. I was just a kindergarten teacher, after all, not the socialite daughter-in-law she wanted for her surgeon's son. What she didn't know was that I had secrets of my own, secrets about my true identity and my father's empire in Asia. "Mrs. Zhang," the day nurse would whisper when Eleanor left, "your father's condition remains stable. The doctors in Singapore say he might wake up any day now." My father, Alexander Zhang, had been in a coma himself for the past 10 years after a suspicious accident at one of his technology companies. I changed my name to Lily Chen and moved to America to protect myself after attempts on my life. Only the hospital administrator knew my true identity, and that my father was Asia's wealthiest tech mogul. The day everything changed started like any other. I lay there, listening to life happen around me, when Eleanor's voice cut through my thoughts. "David, this has gone on long enough," she declared. "I've arranged for her to be transferred to a long-term care facility, a rather basic one. I'm afraid her teacher's insurance won't cover anything better." "Mom, I can't just give up on her," David protested weakly. His resistance had been getting weaker lately, worn down by his mother's constant pressure. "Don't be ridiculous. You're not giving up. You're moving on." Now, about that ring. I felt her cold fingers on my left hand, tugging at my wedding ring. The last connection to my life with David. "Mom, stop." But David's protest came too late. "There," Eleanor said smugly. "This ring has been in the Sullivan family for generations. I'll keep it safe until you find someone more suitable to wear it." That's when the room's phone rang. The nurse answered, her voice suddenly excited. "Mrs. Sullivan, there's an urgent call from Singapore General Hospital. They say it's about Lily's father." Eleanor scoffed. Her father? That deadbeat who never visited? What could possibly? But her words were cut off by the breaking news alert on the room's TV. Beret King. Tech billionaire Alexander Zhang awakens after 10-year coma. Fortune estimated at $50 billion. The picture on screen showed my father, my very much alive and now conscious father, being helped into a wheelchair, his face determined. The caption read, Zhang's first words, "Where is my daughter?" The room fell silent except for the sound of my stolen wedding ring hitting the floor from Eleanor's shocked fingers. The next 24 hours turned the Sullivan family's world upside down. I lay in my hospital bed, still unable to move but fully aware as chaos erupted around me. "This has to be a coincidence," Eleanor was saying, pacing the room. "That man can't possibly be Lily's father. She's just a kindergarten teacher from a poor family. David, back me up here." But David wasn't listening to his mother anymore. He was staring at the TV screen where photos of my father and me at charity galas years ago were now being shown. The resemblance was undeniable. "All this time," he whispered, "you never told me, Lily." That's when the hospital administrator, Dr. Sarah Martinez, walked in with 4 serious-looking men in suits, my father's security team. "Mrs. Sullivan," Dr. Martinez said coldly, "I believe you have something that belongs to Ms. Zhang." Eleanor clutched her designer handbag where she'd stashed my wedding ring. "I don't know what you're talking about. And who is Ms. Zhang?" "This is Lily Chen, my son's, well, his soon-to-be ex-wife." Actually, one of the security men stepped forward. "This is Lily Zhang, daughter of Alexander Zhang and heir to Zhang Technologies. And we have surveillance footage of you removing her wedding ring without consent." The color drained from Eleanor's face. I was just protecting a family heirloom. A family heirloom. Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Interesting, because we also have footage of you trying to sell that same ring to a jewelry dealer last week. The same week you arranged to transfer Lily to a substandard care facility." David's head snapped up. "You did what, Mom?" But the revelations weren't over. Dr. Martinez pulled out a thick file. "We've been documenting everything, Mrs. Sullivan. The attempts to interfere with Lily's care, the conversations with lawyers about having her declared incompetent, and most importantly, your recent communications with the same people who orchestrated the attempt on Mr. John's life 10 years ago." Eleanor's perfectly maintained composure cracked. "You can't prove anything." Actually, a familiar voice came from the doorway. "We can prove everything." My father, Alexander Jean, wheeled himself into the room, still wearing a hospital gown but radiating authority. Behind him, more security personnel blocked the exits. 10 years ago, he continued, his voice gaining strength, someone tried to kill me to take control of my company. They failed, but they did succeed in driving my daughter into hiding. Imagine my surprise when I woke up to discover she'd married into the Sullivan family, the same family that tried to orchestrate my corporate takeover. Eleanor's face went from white to gray. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Your late husband's signature is all over the paperwork, Mrs. Sullivan," my father said quietly. "And now, a decade later, here you are, trying to get rid of my daughter the same way you tried to get rid of me." David stumbled back against the wall, his world crumbling. "Mom, what did you do?" The truth was finally coming out, but none of them realized that the biggest shock was yet to come. Because what they didn't know was that the experimental treatment my father had arranged wasn't just for him, it was for me too. And as Eleanor was about to discover, karma has perfect timing. The experimental treatment began working exactly when Eleanor's world was falling apart. My first finger twitch went unnoticed as she tried to explain herself to David. "Sweetheart, everything I did was for you," she pleaded. "The Sullivans were losing everything after your father's death. We needed the John fortune." "So you tried to kill her father?" David's voice cracked. "Tried to get rid of my wife? She was never good enough for you." Eleanor snapped. "Just a kindergarten teacher. And now she's pretending to be some billionaire's daughter." That's when I moved my hand. The room fell silent. Dr. Martinez rushed to my side, checking my vitals. "The treatment's working," she announced. "Lily, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand again." I did. Then slowly, I opened my eyes. Eleanor backed away like she'd seen a ghost. "No, this is impossible." "Nothing's impossible with enough research and resources," my father said quietly. "While you were plotting to move my daughter to a substandard facility, I had teams of scientists working on treatments for both our conditions. Money may not buy happiness, Mrs. Sullivan, but it certainly buys better medical care than what you had planned for Lily." My voice was weak, but clear enough. "I remember everything, Eleanor. Every cruel word. Every scheme. Every time you whispered to David about letting me go." David fell to his knees beside my bed, tears streaming down his face. "Lily, I'm so sorry. I should have been stronger, should have protected you." "Mrs. Sullivan," one of the security team interrupted, "the FBI agents are here." Eleanor's perfectly manicured hands shook as federal agents entered the room. "You don't understand," she said desperately. "The Sullivans were going to lose everything after Charles died. His gambling debts, the failed investments, the Jean fortune was our only hope." "So you tried to kill my father?" I asked, my strength returning. "Arranged my car accident when you discovered who I really was?" Her silence was damning. "The brake lines didn't fail by accident," my father added. "Just like my accident 10 years ago wasn't really an accident. The only difference is, this time we have proof." As the FBI led Eleanor away in handcuffs, she turned back one last time. "David, please, you're all I have left." But David stood firmly by my bed, holding my hand. "No, Mother. I finally see you for who you really are, and I choose my wife." The aftermath was swift and dramatic. Eleanor was sentenced to 20 years for attempted murder, corporate espionage, and fraud. The truth about Charles Sullivan's gambling debts and secret deals came to light, shaking Boston's social circles to their core. David resigned from his prestigious hospital position, choosing instead to join my father's medical research foundation. Together, we're developing treatments for coma patients, turning our trauma into hope for others. As for me, I still teach kindergarten 2 days a week, but now I run our foundation's education initiative, building schools for underprivileged children across Asia. The kids don't care that their teacher is a billionaire's daughter. They just know Ms. Lily lets them finger paint and tells great stories about dragons. My father recovered fully and now splits his time between Singapore and Boston, making up for lost years with his grandchildren. He never misses a school play or a bedtime story. Eleanor serves her sentence in a minimum security prison, where she teaches basic etiquette to other inmates. Sometimes life has a sense of irony. The wedding ring she tried to steal. It sits in a museum exhibit about corporate crime, a reminder that some family heirlooms carry darker legacies than others. Last week, I visited Eleanor in prison. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by a standard jumpsuit. "Why did you come?" she asked. "To tell you I forgive you," I replied. "Not for your sake, but for mine, and to give you this." I handed her a child's drawing, her grandchild's first artwork from my kindergarten class. "You tried to destroy our family," I said quietly. "Instead, you made it stronger." That's the thing about karma, Eleanor. Sometimes it doesn't just punish, it teaches. As I left, I heard her crying for the first time in all the years I'd known her. Real tears, not the social tears she perfected for charity galas. David and I named our daughter Rose, not after Eleanor's favorite flower, but after the garden my father planted during his recovery. Every spring, it blooms with a wild, untamed beauty, reminding us that the most precious things in life can't be schemed or stolen. They have to be nurtured with love.